The shuttle broke through the clouds of Veltri 7, and Una pressed her face closer to the window. Below her, the Galactic Integration Academy spread across the moon's surface like a silver flower. Towers of glass and metal reached toward the purple sky. Ships from 100 different worlds floated above landing pads. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It was everything she had dreamed about since she was a little girl in Bizon, looking up at the stars. "Stop blocking the window," said Doan from the seat next to her. He was trying to sound annoyed, but she could hear the excitement in his voice too. Una moved back and smiled at him. "Sorry, I just cannot believe we are actually here." Dohan was 28 years old, 2 years older than her. He'd been a soldier before joining the Earth Integration Program. His body was strong, his jaw was sharp, and his temper was quick. But Una knew that under all that hardness, he had a good heart. That was why she liked working with him. "Believe it," he said. "We are about to be the only humans in a school full of aliens who think we are stupid animals." "Not stupid animals," Una corrected. "They call us a probationary species. It is more polite. Same thing with nicer words." She could not argue with that. The shuttle landed with a soft bump. The door opened and warm air rushed inside. It smelled strange, like flowers and metal mixed together. Una picked up her bag and stepped onto the landing pad. 12 humans had been chosen to attend the academy. They came from different countries, different backgrounds, different lives. But here, on this alien moon, they were all just humans. The youngest species in the galactic community. The newest members of a universe that had been traveling between stars for millions of years. A tall figure waited for them at the edge of the landing pad. She had blue skin and 4 arms, and she wore a white uniform that glowed softly in the purple light. Her name was Administrator Kellis, and she was in charge of new students. "Welcome to the Galactic Integration Academy," she said. Her voice was smooth and kind. "I hope your journey was comfortable." "Very comfortable, thank you," said Una. She bowed slightly. A habit from home. Administrator Kellis looked at her with interest. "You must be Representative Una. I read your file. You were a military psychologist on Earth." "Yes, Administrator." "Interesting. The mind sciences are highly valued here. I think you will find much to learn." She paused. "And perhaps much to teach as well." Una was not sure what to say to that, so she just bowed again. The administrator led them through the academy grounds. Everything was bigger than Una expected. The hallways were wide enough for creatures of all sizes. The ceilings were high enough for beings with wings to fly. Screens on the walls showed information in dozens of languages. Alien students walked past them, some on 2 legs, some on 4, some on none at all. Most of them did not look at the humans. The ones who did look had expressions that Una recognized. She had seen them before, on the faces of people who thought they were better than others. Pity, amusement, contempt. Dohan noticed it too. His hands became fists at his sides. "Ignore them," Una whispered. "Easy for you to say." "No, it is not easy, but it is necessary." They reached a large auditorium where all new students were gathering for orientation. Hundreds of aliens sat in curved rows of seats. The humans were given seats at the very back, in the corner. Una told herself it did not matter. They were here to learn, not to fight for better chairs. A voice filled the room. "Welcome, students, to your first day at the Galactic Integration Academy." The speaker stood on a floating platform at the front of the auditorium. He was a Mindari, one of the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. His skin was silver, like liquid metal. He had 3 eyes, all of them black and deep. When he moved, it was slow and deliberate, like he had all the time in the universe. "I am Instructor Vethel," he said. "I teach cognitive dominance." For those who do not know, This is the art of using mental strength to control situations, to control others, to win without fighting. Yuna felt a cold feeling in her stomach. She had read about the Mandari and their mental powers. They could read thoughts. They could project emotions. They had used these abilities to build an empire that had conquered dozens of species. Some of you, Bethel continued, come from species with natural mental abilities. You will find my class challenging but rewarding. His three eyes moved across the room and stopped on the humans in the back corner. Others come from species that are less developed. Species whose minds are closed, dark, primitive. The room was silent. Everyone knew who he was talking about. For these students, I have prepared a special assessment program. We must first determine if their minds can handle advanced concepts before we can teach them anything useful. Dohan started to stand up. Yuna grabbed his arm and pulled him back down. Let it go, she whispered. He's insulting us in front of everyone. Yes, and if you react, he wins. That is what he wants. Dohan's jaw was tight, but he stayed in his seat. Bethel smiled. It was not a friendly smile. I see the humans are learning already. Good. You will meet that self-control. After the orientation ended, the humans gathered in their dormitory. It was small compared to the rooms other species received, but it was clean and functional. 12 beds, 12 desks, 12 small spaces for 12 small humans in a very big universe. This is wrong, said Dohan. He was pacing back and forth. They treat us like children, like animals. We did not come all this way to be laughed at. We came to learn, said Yuna. She sat on her bed, organizing her belongings. And to show them what humans can do. How? By sitting quietly while they mock us? Yuna looked up at him. Her eyes were calm, but there was something strong underneath. Let them underestimate us. It costs us nothing. But when the time comes, we will show them who we really are. And when will that time come? She smiled. When they least expect it. That night, Yuna lay in her bed and looked at the ceiling. Through the window, she could see stars that humans had only dreamed about 100 years ago. Her grandmother had survived a terrible war. Her father had worked his whole life so she could have opportunities. Now she was here, carrying the hopes of her entire species. She would not let them down. She would not let anyone break her. Tomorrow, the real challenge would begin. Instructor Vethelo thought he knew what humans were. He thought they were weak, primitive, easy to control. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The classroom was round, like the inside of a bowl. Students sat in rising rows that curved around a central platform. The walls were dark, and small lights floated near the ceiling like tiny stars. It felt less like a classroom and more like a theater, where something dramatic was about to happen. Yuna took her seat next to Dawn. The other human students spread out around them. They were all nervous, but trying not to show it. This was their first class with Instructor Vethel, and everyone knew it would not be easy. The Mindari instructor floated onto the central platform. His silver skin caught the light from above, making him glow like a ghost. His 3 black eyes scanned the room slowly, stopping briefly on each student. Today, he said, we begin your education in cognitive dominance. But first, a demonstration. He raised one of his long, thin hands. The lights in the room dimmed even further. Every species has a weakness, a door in the mind that can be opened with the right key. For most beings, that key is fear. Yuna felt something change in the air. It was like a weight pressing down on her chest. Around her, alien students began to shift in their seats. Some lowered their heads. Others closed their eyes. A few made small sounds of distress. Vethal was projecting fear into the room. Pure, raw terror pushed directly into their minds. Yuna waited to feel it. She waited for the panic to take hold of her. Nothing happened. She looked at Dahan. He seemed confused, but not afraid. The other human students were the same. They looked around at the aliens who were shaking and sweating, and they did not understand why everyone was reacting so strongly. The pressure in the room lifted. Vethal lowered his hand. "Interesting," he said, his three eyes fixed on the human section. "It seems our newest students are immune to direct mental projection. Their minds are too closed, too primitive to receive the transmission." A few alien students laughed softly. "This is not an advantage," Vethal continued. "A closed mind cannot learn. It cannot grow. It is like a door that has been locked from the inside. Eventually, something will break it down." He smiled at Yuna. She did not smile back. Over the next hour, Vethal explained the history of cognitive dominance. The Mindari had developed these techniques over millions of years. They had used them to end wars, to negotiate treaties, and yes, to conquer other species. Mental power, he said, was the ultimate form of control. "But what do you do," asked an alien student with green scales, "when mental attacks do not work? Like with the humans?" Vethal's smile grew wider. "An excellent question. When the mind cannot be attacked directly, we attack it indirectly. Through words, through emotions, through shame." He turned to face the human students. "Let us talk about Earth." Yuna felt her stomach tighten. Humans have only been traveling in space for a short time. Before that, they spent thousands of years fighting each other. War after war after war. They killed millions of their own kind. They destroyed their own planet's environment. They created weapons that could end all life on their world. Images appeared in the air above the platform. Yuna recognized them. Wars from human history. Bombs falling on cities. Forests burning. Oceans filled with garbage. "This is the species that wants to join the galactic community," Bethel said. "This is the species that asks for respect." More laughter from the alien students. This time, it was louder. Dohan's hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from anger. Yuna could see the muscles in his jaw working as he tried to stay silent. "Humans are a young species," Bethel continued. "They have not learned to control their emotions, their violence, their primitive desires. Perhaps in another million years, they might be ready for civilization." He looked directly at Yuna. "Do you have anything to say, human?" The room went quiet. Everyone was watching her dot, while Yuna picked up her tablet and made a note. Her hand was steady. "I think this is very educational, Instructor," she said calmly. "Please continue." Veth Al's smile flickered. He had expected her to react, to get angry, to prove his point about human emotions. Instead, she just sat there, taking notes like a good student. After class, the human students hurried back to their dormitory. Dohan could not contain himself anymore. "How could you just sit there?" he demanded. "He insulted everything about us. Our history. Our people. And you just took notes?" "Yes," said Yuna. "I did. Why?" She sat down on her bed and looked up at him. "Because he wanted me to react. Every word he said was designed to make us angry. If we get angry, we prove him right. We show everyone that humans cannot control themselves. So we just let him say whatever he wants? For now, yes. We learn. We watch. We wait." The other human students gathered around. A young man named Jizyok spoke up. "Yuna is right. We cannot win a fight against someone like Bethel. He is too powerful, too respected. If we attack him directly, we lose. Then how do we win?" asked Doan. Yuna smiled slightly. "We do not try to win. We just survive. And sometimes, surviving is the greatest victory of all." That evening, as Yuna walked alone through the academy gardens, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to find Instructor Vethel standing in the path. In the purple moonlight, his silver skin seemed almost beautiful. "You surprised me today," he said. "Most humans would have reacted to my words. I am not most humans. I can see that." He took a step closer. "Tell me, what do you feel when you look at those images? The wars? The destruction? Does it not shame you?" Yuna thought carefully before answering. "I feel sadness. I feel regret. But shame? No. I was not alive during those times. I did not make those choices. I can only learn from them." "Learn?" Vethel laughed softly. "What can you learn from failure?" "Everything. We learn what not to do. We learn how to be better. Every mistake is a teacher, if we are willing to listen." Vethel moved closer. His 3 eyes stared into her too. "Let me show you something." He raised his hand, and suddenly Yuna saw images in her mind. Not telepathy, she realized. Some kind of technology that could project visuals directly into her brain. She saw more of human history. But this time, it was worse. She saw specific moments of cruelty, specific acts of violence, things that made her stomach turn. "This is what your species is capable of," Vethel whispered. "This is the truth that lives inside every human. You pretend to be civilized, but underneath, you are animals. Dangerous, violent animals." The images continued. Genocide, torture, betrayal. "Admit it," Vethel said. "Admit that humans are inferior. Admit that you do not belong here. Do this, and I will make your time at the academy much easier." Yuna watched the images. She did not look away. She did not cry. She did not flinch out when they finally stopped. She met Vethal's eyes calmly. "Is that all you have?" she asked. For a long moment, the Mindari instructor said nothing. Then he stepped back, and for the first time, Yuna saw something in his expression that looked like uncertainty. "You are either very brave," he said, "or very foolish." "Maybe both," said Yuna. "We will see." Vethal turned and walked away into the darkness. Yuna stood alone in the garden, her heart beating fast but her face still calm. He had shown her humanity's worst moments. Soon, she would show him something else, something he was not prepared for at all. 3 weeks passed at the academy. Yuna attended every class, completed every assignment, and never once lost her composure. This bothered Instructor Vethel more than anything else. He had spent his entire career breaking students. He knew exactly how to find the weak spots in any mind and push until something cracked. But this human woman was different. Every attack he made seemed to slide off her like water off stone. The other Mindari instructors noticed his frustration. They talked about it in quiet voices. The great Vethel, humbled by a creature whose species had only discovered fire a few thousand years ago. It was embarrassing. Something had to be done. On a cold morning, Yuna received a message on her tablet. She was ordered to report to the main lecture hall for a special demonstration. When she arrived, she found hundreds of students already seated. Not just her class, but students from across the academy. This was going to be a big event. Don pushed through the crowd to reach her. His face was worried. "I heard what this is about," he whispered. "Vethal is going to use you as a test subject. Something called deep cognitive mapping. He's going to look inside your mind and show everyone what he finds." Yuna nodded slowly. "I expected something like this. Are you not scared?" She considered the question honestly. "Yes, a little. But fear does not change what I need to do." "Which is what?" "Show them the truth." Before Doan could ask what she meant, a voice called her name. Yuna walked down the steps to the central platform, where Vethel waited beside a strange machine. It looked like a chair surrounded by floating rings of metal. Wires and lights connected it to screens that hovered in the air. "Thank you for volunteering," Vethel said. His voice was smooth, but there was something hungry in his eyes. "I did not volunteer," Yuna pointed out. "Details." He gestured to the chair. "Please, sit." Yuna sat down. The metal rings began to spin slowly around her head. She felt a strange tingling sensation, like electricity moving across her skin. "This is a neural amplifier," Vethal explained to the audience. "It allows me to examine a subject's memories and project them for everyone to see. No secrets can hide from this device. No lies can survive its light." He turned to Yuna. "Today, we will see what truly lives inside the human mind. We will see the darkness that this species tries so hard to hide." The screens flickered to life. Yuna felt pressure building behind her eyes, like someone was pushing against a door inside her head. Vethel pushed harder. He was searching for fear, for shame, for the hidden wounds that every being carried. He expected to find chaos. Humans were emotional creatures, after all. Their minds should be messy, disorganized, full of trauma and regret. Instead, he found something unexpected. Order.yun. A single quotes as memories were arranged, like books on a shelf, organized, labeled, ready to be accessed at any time. This was not the mind of a primitive creature. This was the mind of someone who had spent years understanding herself, and she was not hiding anything. She was waiting for him. The screens began to show images. Not the darkness Vethal was searching for, but memories that Yuna chose to share. The audience saw an old woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She was sitting in a small apartment, holding a young girl on her lap. The old woman was speaking in a soft voice, telling a story. "This is my grandmother," Yuna's voice said through the amplifier. "Her name was Yunji. When she was 8 years old, war came to her country. Her family lost everything. They walked for days through snow and ice, with nothing to eat, nowhere to sleep. Many people died on that journey. But my grandmother survived." The image changed. Now it showed the old woman as a young girl, thin and cold, walking through a frozen landscape. Her eyes were empty with exhaustion, but her feet kept moving forward. "She never forgot what she went through," Yuna continued. "But she did not let it destroy her. She built a new life. She raised a family. She taught her children and grandchildren that no matter how dark things became, there was always a reason to keep going." Vethal tried to push past these memories, to find something uglier underneath. But Yuna held firm. The next image showed a middle-aged man working in a factory. His hands were rough and scarred. His face was tired. But when he looked up, there was pride in his eyes. "This is my father, Taiwan. He worked 16 hours a day for 30 years so that his children could go to school. He never complained. He never asked for anything in return. He just worked because he believed that the future would be better than the past." The screen showed more memories now. Yuna as a young woman in a military uniform. Soldiers sitting in a circle, some of them crying. Yuna listening, holding their hands, speaking soft words of comfort. "I became a psychologist because I wanted to help people who were hurting. I spent years working with soldiers who had seen terrible things. Men and women who had been broken by war and violence. Do you know what I learned from them?" She looked directly at Vethal. "I learned that humans are not defined by their worst moments. We are defined by what we do after those moments. How we heal, how we grow, how we help each other stand up again." The audience was completely silent. Every alien in the room was watching the screens, watching memories of human kindness, human strength, human love. Vethal felt something he had never felt before in his long career. He pushed harder into Yuna's mind, desperate to find something dark, some secret shame that would prove his theories about humans correct. But there was nothing to find. Not because Yuna was perfect, but because she had already faced her own darkness. She had looked at every painful memory, every mistake, every regret. She had examined them, learned from them, and made peace with them. There were no weapons left in her mind for Vethal to use against her. The final memory appeared on the screens. It was recent, just a few weeks old. Una stood in the academy gardens, facing Vethal as he showed her images of human cruelty. The audience watched her expression in that memory. Calm, steady, unafraid. They heard her voice ask, "Is that all you have?" And then the memory ended. Vethal disconnected the neural amplifier. The metal rings stopped spinning. Una stood up from the chair, her legs a little unsteady but her face still composed. The Mindari instructor stared at her. For the first time in perhaps 1,000 years, he did not know what to say. In the audience, Dohon was crying. So were several of the other humans. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of pride. The alien students around them looked different now. The mockery was gone from their eyes. Something else had taken its place. Respect. Yun. I walked back up the steps to her seat. As she passed Doan, she squeezed his hand once. "That," she whispered, "is who we are." The class was dismissed without another word from Vethal. He stood alone on the platform, staring at the empty screens, trying to understand what had just happened. He had wanted to expose human weakness. Instead, he had shown the entire academy human strength. And now, everything would change. The lecture hall was still silent. Hundreds of students sat frozen in their seats. No one moved. No one spoke. The screens above the platform were dark now, but the images from Yuna's memories still floated in everyone's minds. Vethal stood alone on the central platform. His silver skin had lost some of its glow. His 3 black eyes were unfocused, staring at nothing. For the first time in his teaching career, he looked lost. Una had almost reached her seat when she stopped. She turned around and looked back at the platform. Something inside her said that this moment was not finished yet. There was more that needed to be said. She began walking back down the steps. Dohan grabbed her arm. "What are you doing?" "Finishing what he started." "Una, you already won. You do not need to do anything else." She looked at him with calm eyes. "This is not about winning, Dohan. It is about truth." She pulled her arm free and continued down to the platform. Every eye in the room followed her. Vethal watched her approach but did not move to stop her. Una stepped onto the platform and faced the audience. Her voice was not loud, but in the perfect silence, everyone could hear her clearly. "You have seen my memories," she said. "You have seen the things that made me who I am. My grandmother's survival, my father's sacrifice, my work with people who were hurting." She paused, but Instructor Vinithel wanted you to see something else. He wanted you to see human darkness, human shame, human failure. She turned to face the Mindari instructor directly. "So let me give you what you asked for. Let me talk about our darkness." The audience leaned forward slightly. Even Vethal's eyes focused again, curious about what she would say. "Yes, humans have done terrible things. We have fought wars that killed millions. We have hurt each other in ways that are hard to understand. We have destroyed our own world, poisoned our own water, burned our own forests. All of this is true." She let the words hang in the air. "We do not hide from this truth. We teach it to our children in schools. We build museums to remember our worst moments. We write books and make films about the times when we failed. Do you know why? Silence. Because we believe that remembering our mistakes is the only way to avoid making them again. We carry our shame not as a weight that holds us down, but as a lesson that pushes us forward." She took a step toward Vethal. "Instructor, you have spent this class teaching us about cognitive dominance. You have shown us how to find weakness in others, how to use shame as a weapon. This is impressive knowledge. Her voice became quieter, but somehow even more powerful. But I wonder, does this technique work on everyone? Or only on those who have not faced their own shame? Vethel, his expression shifted. Something flickered in his three eyes. Was it fear? Yuna continued. You showed me humanity's worst moments in the garden that night. Images of our wars, our violence, our cruelty. You thought these things would break me. But they did not break me because I had already seen them. I had already felt the pain of them. I had already decided that I would not let them define me. She looked up at the neural amplifier still floating above the platform. This machine can project anyone's memories. Yes? Not just mine? Vethel did not answer, but his silence was answer enough. Then let me ask you something, Instructor. In front of all these students, in front of this entire academy, she met his eyes directly. Show us the fall of Mindari Prime. The reaction was immediate. Gasps from the alien students. Shocked expressions. Even Vethel took a step backward, as if she had physically struck him. Every species in the galaxy knew about the fall of Mindari Prime. It was one of the most shameful events in Mindari history. During a great disaster thousands of years ago, the Mindari had abandoned their home world. In their desperate escape, they had done things that no civilization wanted to remember. Things that they had spent thousands of years trying to hide. You have access to those memories, do you not? Yuna asked calmly. They are part of your species' history. Part of who the Mindari are. Just as Earth's wars are part of who humans are. Vethal's voice was rough when he finally spoke. That is not relevant to this class. Really? Because I thought this class was about understanding weakness. Understanding shame. Understanding how to use dark truths against others. Yuna tilted her head slightly. Or is that technique only for use against younger species? Species that have not learned how to hide their history as well as the Mindari have. The lecture hall was completely silent. Students from a dozen different species were watching this exchange with wide eyes. Many of them had never seen anyone challenge a Mindari instructor before an alien student with green scales stood up. She has a point, he said. His voice was nervous but determined. We have all heard about Mindari history. The conquests. The subjugation of other species. The things that happened during the fall. If humans must face their past, why should the Mindari be any different? Another student joined in. This one had 4 arms and blue skin. My species was conquered by the Mindari 1,000 years ago. They used these same techniques on us. Cognitive dominance. Mental warfare. Shame as a weapon. She looked at Vethel. Perhaps it is time for some honesty about who has truly caused suffering in this galaxy. More voices joined the discussion. Species that had been quiet for years began to speak. Old wounds opened. Old memories surfaced. Vethel raised his hands for silence. But for the first time, the students did not immediately obey. Yuna spoke again, her voice cutting through the noise. I am not asking you to be ashamed, Instructor. I am asking you to be honest. Every species has darkness in its past. Every civilization has done things it regrets. The difference is not whether we have sinned, but whether we are willing to face what we have done. She walked slowly toward him. You thought you could break me with shame. But shame only works on those who have not already accepted their own failures. Humans know what we have done wrong. We talk about it. We argue about it. We cry about it. And then we try to do better. She stopped just a few steps away from him. Can you say the same? Vethel stared at her for a long moment. His 3 eyes seemed to look not just at her, but through her, into some distant place that only he could see when he finally spoke. His voice was barely above a whisper. Class dismissed. He turned and floated off the platform, disappearing through a side door. The neural amplifier powered down with a soft hum. The screens went completely dark. Yuna stood alone on the platform for a moment, then walked back up to her seat. Dahlem was waiting for her. His eyes were shining. "That was incredible," he said. "You destroyed him without raising a fist." Yuna shook her head. "I did not destroy him. I just told the truth. Truth does not need to destroy. It just needs to be heard." Around them, alien students were looking at the humans differently. Not with pity or contempt anymore. With something new. Something that looked a lot like respect. As they left the lecture hall, a young alien with silver markings on his face approached Yuna. "That was brave," he said quietly. "No one has ever spoken to a Mindari instructor that way." "I did not mean to be disrespectful," Yuna replied. "I just think that all species should be held to the same standards, including my own." The alien nodded slowly. "Perhaps that is why humans might be worth knowing after all." He walked away before Yuna could respond. Dohan grinned at her. "I think you just changed something important." Yuna looked up at the purple sky of Veltri 7. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe I just started a conversation that was long overdue. Either way, the Academy would never be the same." Word spread through the Academy like fire through dry grass. Within hours, every student had heard about the human woman who stood up to Instructor Vethel. Within days, video recordings of the incident were being shared on communication networks across the galaxy. Species that had never heard of Earth before were now watching Yuna's memories, listening to her words, and asking questions about these strange beings called humans. The Mindari authorities were not happy. Several high-ranking officials visited the Academy to discuss the situation. There was talk of disciplinary action against Yuna, of sending the human delegation home, of erasing the recordings and pretending the incident never happened. But something had changed. Other species began speaking up in defense of the humans. The green-scaled student who had questioned Vethel during the class filed a formal protest against unfair treatment. The blue-skinned student with 4 arms started a discussion group about historical injustice in the galactic community. Even Administrator Kellis quietly made it known that she believed Yuna had done nothing wrong. In the end, the Mindari authorities decided to do nothing. Punishing Yuna would only draw more attention to what had happened. It was better, they concluded, to let the matter quietly disappear. But it did not disappear. The humans noticed the change immediately. When they walked through the Academy halls, other students no longer looked away or laughed behind their backs. Some even nodded in greeting. A few approached to ask questions about Earth, about human history, about how a species so young could produce someone like Yuna. Dohan handled the attention better than most. He had always been social, always ready to talk, always happy to explain things to those who were curious. He became something of an unofficial ambassador, answering questions and telling stories about life on Earth. Yuna stayed quieter. She continued attending classes, completing assignments, and keeping to herself. Fame did not interest her. She had not spoken up for attention. She had spoken up because it was the right thing to do. One evening, she received a message on her tablet. Instructor Vethenlal wanted to meet with her privately in his quarters. Dohan was immediately worried. It could be a trap. He might be planning revenge. "I do not think so," Yuna said. "His message seems different. Different how? I am not sure, but I need to find out." She went alone, despite Dahan's protests. Vetheli's quarters were in a tall tower at the edge of the Academy grounds. The door opened automatically when she approached, revealing a room filled with strange objects from dozens of worlds. Artifacts, books, memories of a life that had stretched across thousands of years. Vethel stood by a window, looking out at the stars. He did not turn around when she entered. "Thank you for coming," he said. His voice sounded tired. Yuna waited by the door. You wanted to see me. Yes. He finally turned to face her. In the dim light, he looked older somehow, less sure of himself. I have been teaching at this academy for 40 cycles. In that time, I have encountered thousands of students from hundreds of species. I have broken many of them, used their weaknesses against them, made them admit their inferiority. He paused. No one has ever done to me what you did. Yuna did not respond. She just listened. You reflected my own methods back at me. You used truth as a weapon, just as I have used shame as a weapon. But your truth was different. It was not designed to destroy. It was designed to reveal. He walked slowly across the room and sat down heavily in a chair. I have spent my entire life believing that the Mindari way was the only way. That mental dominance was the highest form of power. That species like yours were beneath us, too primitive to understand the galaxy we had built. He looked up at her. I was wrong. The words hung in the air between them. Yuna took a step closer. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked me a question that I could not answer. You asked if I could face my own past the way humans face theirs. He shook his head slowly. The truth is, I cannot. My species has spent thousands of years hiding from our history. We buried our shame so deep that most Mindari do not even know it exists anymore. He stood up again and walked back to the window. Your grandmother survived a war. Your father worked his entire life for his children. You spent years helping broken soldiers heal. These are stories of pain, yes, but also stories of survival, of growth, of hope. His voice became quieter. The Mindari have no such stories. We only have victories and the things we did to achieve them. We only have power and the fear it creates. Yuna joined him at the window. Side by side, they looked out at the stars together. It is not too late to change, she said softly. That is what I have learned from human history. No matter how far you have fallen, there is always a chance to get back up. Always a chance to be better. Vethel was silent for a long moment. How do you do it? He asked finally. How do you move forward, carrying so much weight? So many memories of pain and failure. Yuna smiled. We do not carry it alone. That is the human way. When one person falls, others reach out to help them stand. When one person breaks, others help put the pieces back together. We are weak alone, but together we can survive anything. She turned to face him directly. That is the secret you were looking for. The weapon you could not understand. Human strength does not come from ignoring our weakness. It comes from sharing it, from admitting that we need each other. Veth met her eyes. For the first time, there was no arrogance in his expression. No superiority. Just something that looked almost like curiosity. Perhaps, he said slowly, there is more to learn from humans than I thought. The semester continued after that night. Vethal's classes changed subtly. He still taught cognitive dominance, but he also began including lessons about other kinds of strength. Emotional resilience, community bonds, the power of shared vulnerability. Some students noticed a change. Others did not. But the seeds of something new had been planted. On the last day before break, a young alien student approached Dohun in the hallway. She was small, with silver markings on her face and nervous eyes. Excuse me, she said quietly. You are human, yes? Dohun smiled. That is right. I watched the recordings of what happened with Instructor Vethal. I listened to the human woman speak about her grandmother, her father, the soldiers she helped. She hesitated, gathering her courage. Can you teach me about human resilience? I want to understand how your species survives so much pain and still finds reasons to hope. Dohun looked across the hallway to where Yuna was walking toward them. She had seen the exchange and was already smiling. He looked back at the young alien student. Yeah, he said. Pull up a chair. It is a long story, but a good one. As they found a quiet place to sit and talk, Una paused by a window and looked out at the academy grounds. Students from dozens of species walked together in the purple light. Some were talking. Some were laughing. Some were simply walking in comfortable silence. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived a war and built a new life. She thought about her father, who had worked so hard to give his children opportunities. She thought about all the soldiers she had helped, all the broken people who had found their way back to Hope. And she thought about the future, not just for humans, but for all the species in this vast galaxy. A future where strength was not measured by power alone, but by the courage to face the truth, the willingness to admit mistakes, the ability to grow beyond the darkness of the past. It would not be easy. Change never was. But somewhere in this strange academy on this distant moon, something important had begun. Humans were no longer just visitors in the galaxy. They were teachers now, and their best lessons were only beginning.